Hello, welcome to the JimRPG Show. It's April 17, 2020. My name is Jimmy, and this is a show about the latest gaming news. Now, before I begin, I wanted to talk about my channel and what I intended to do with it. Previously, I wanted to talk about I wanted to do some gameplay videos and to do some reviews, but I feel like with the limited amount of time I have, that's probably not going to be a good idea, and I'd probably be better off spending my limited time talking to you guys about the latest gaming news, and hopefully we get some discussion happening in the comments below. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about the latest gaming news. So our first news article is from US Gamer, and they talk about Resident Evil 4. So report Resident Evil 4 is the next remake. Over the past few years, several Resident Evil games have received a remake treatment. Last weekend, reports surfaced that the trend would continue with one of the series' finest, Resident Evil 4. Video Games Chronicle reported yesterday that Capcom has greenlit a Resident Evil 4 remake, which, according to VGC, has entered full production with a release window of 2022. Rather than Capcom's internal teams, the new studio, M2, founded by Tetsuya Minami, former head of Platinum Games, is reportedly set to develop the remake, though it would be lended significant development resources. So I think the most interesting thing here is that Resident Evil 4 is going to be developed outside of Capcom's internal teams. It looks like it's being developed externally by a third party, former head of Platinum Games. I'm not sure that's a good idea, because I'm playing Resident Evil 2 remake right now, and I think that's a great game, and that was developed internally by Capcom teams. And we also saw, like with Resident Evil 3, how with Resident Evil 3 remake, some of the development was pushed to some other teams externally, and seems like a lot of the feedback has been that Resident Evil 3 isn't as good as Resident Evil 2 remake, but that could also be down to the fact that they're two different games that are being remade. So with Resident Evil 4, it seems like they're further handing out the development to external parties, which probably, I guess from their perspective, they've already decided on the philosophy of the game. So if they can convey that message to the external parties, it seems like their line of thinking is that, well, we want you to do it in a similar mold to Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. Can you make something the same? And therefore, they don't have to be involved in the development as much. Personally, I think that it would probably, because Resident Evil 4 has so many fans, it would have made sense that they probably did that internally. But there are a lot of other factors involved. I think, like maybe they thought the Resident Evil 4 remake was going to be such a big game that it would take up too much of their own time, and their studios are not really set up to handle remakes. It's more for development of new games, so maybe that's probably why they've gone down that route of handing it out to external developers. But I think no matter what, Resident Evil 4 remake is going to be a good game regardless. So yeah, they'd really have to stuff it up to make it a bad game. our next article, Crysis Remastered revealed, coming to Nintendo Switch. And by the way, I'll leave links to all of these articles in the description below, so you can click on them. Okay, so Crysis Remastered on Nintendo Switch. Okay, following Crysis Remastered's sudden appearance on Crytek's official website earlier today, the developer has now shared more in the way of specifics alongside a summer launch window on PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and Switch. So it seems like the Switch will be able to handle Crysis, not only Crysis, but Crysis Remastered. This is the joke is that you need a powerful PC from 30 years into the future to actually play Crysis, and Nintendo Switch isn't the strongest out of the existing consoles right now. In fact, I don't even know if I think Crysis was on PS3 if I recall. So, and Nintendo Switch is probably around that level, around a PlayStation 3 level. So yeah, it's coming in summer. Okay, our next article comes from Polygon. Uncharted Collection and Journey free on PlayStation 4 as part of Sony Play at Home initiative. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, Sony's giving away games and 10 million to indies. So this is available. So Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, which is 3 games: Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. These were games on the PlayStation 3 that's been remastered onto the PlayStation 4, and they sold that as one game as a package. And Journey. So those games will be free from April 15. So you can go right now, because I did this last night, to go to the PSN store and download the games. Now, this is basically worldwide except for a couple of countries. I'm not sure which of the countries, but there's only a couple of countries that are not getting this. Maybe they'll get like a replacement. So check with your local area to see. Check with the local area to see if you're getting these free games. Eurogamer writes that Gamescom is officially cancelled. Okay, so they say is official. Organizers wrote in a statement posted to Twitter. Gamescom will under no circumstances take place on site in Cologne this year. Just like many of you, we are disappointed because as the Gamescom team, we have been working on a wonderful Gamescom 2020 for months, just like the many exhibitors. However, it is also quite clear to us that in the face of the corona pandemic, we must stand united. This means that we must all be considerate of each other and reduce the risk of infection. We are, however, already working at full speed on a digital Gamescom, the statement continues, elaborating on today's earlier tweet. It is, after all, the world's biggest event for games, and that's what it should be again this year. Not sure about that. You can already look forward to how we will celebrate the best games and Gamescom together with you and millions of gamers worldwide at the end of August, even if it will only be digital and not on location this time. Because one thing is certain, this year too, Gamescom is and will remain the heart of gaming. I don't know if this is the world's biggest event. It could be E3. Somebody should fact check that. But I think with Gamescom cancelled, I'm pretty sure E3 is cancelled. There's a ton of events cancelled. So it looks like the next game show will be the Tokyo Game Show, which used to be huge. And I saw some people on Twitter write that maybe this is the return of TGS, Tokyo Game Show, becoming a big event again. Because what used to happen was that most people, most developers and publishers went to E3 and then Gamescom, and by the time they got to TGS, they'd have less to show, and what would happen would be like the TGS show would be mostly for Japanese games and their Japanese audience, and E3 would be for the Western audiences and Western games. But maybe with Gamescom cancelling, it's possible that TGS will get bigger again. So I guess that's good news for TGS if they don't cancel. And so Gamescom is August and TGS will be third week of September. US Gamer writes that more Picross is coming to the Switch next week. Picross S4 will have some extremely extra puzzles. So if you like puzzles, I recommend Picross. I've only played Picross, the 3DS version, which I think had 3D puzzles. Picross in a 3D sort of with like 3D objects. And the Picross on the Switch looks like it's not going to be 3D objects. I haven't played them, but looks like they have 4 games. There's Picross S1 and Picross S2 and S3. And I did see a tweet from somebody that these were like about $6 or $7. So not expensive. I guess Picross S4 will probably be more expensive, maybe about $20. But if you wanted to start, then you perhaps start with like S1 or S2, which is much cheaper. And these games are kind of a cross between Minesweeper and I guess Number Puzzle. Okay, this article is from US Gamer, and they write, Konami says Turbografx 16 mini release date still to be decided for America. So Konami stated in early March that the launch of the Retro Mini console would be pushed back due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. Today, US Gamer followed up to see if there had been any update as to the mini console's expected availability. We were directed to a page being kept up to date with shipment details, and were told that everything is still TBD to be decided at the moment for the US. Europe is set to get units at the end of April, so hopes are that the United States won't be too far after that. So April for Europe and United States is unknown at the moment. Now, if you want to find out more about the Turbografx 16 mini console, US Gamer also has another article. They did a review, but it was reviewed by Kat Bailey, and there's a games list. If you scroll down the bottom, there's a game list. But she reviewed the Japanese version, which has there's 57 games, and about half of them are in Japanese and half of them are in English. I am guessing that the US version won't have the Japanese games or the Europe version, and you should probably hold out for the Europe or US version, unless you can read Japanese. Now, looking at the list of games, I would probably say that I know like maybe about 10 of them. So the ones that I know, Bomberman 93, R-Type, Space Harrier, Castlevania Rondo of Blood, Bomberman 94, Galaga, Gradius, Super Darius. So to me, this looks like a machine with a lot of horizontal side-scrolling shooters, and this seems like a bit of a niche product for collectors. That's what it looks like, in my opinion. The price is $99, and you get one controller, the console itself, HDMI cable, and a little USB mini cable, which is, I believe, for charging, but they don't give you the AC adapter. And it looks like they will offer one to buy separately for $20. So I mean, we know why they do this, so that they can sell the same box everywhere in Europe and in America, assuming they have the same games. But at least to make it easier for them, and also cheaper as well. They don't have to include that in the box. So yeah, for $99, and I don't think the modders will be that interested in this, considering you can get more powerful hardware with the PS1. Like with the PS1, the chip inside, you'll be able to run Turbografx games no problem. $99. I don't know how many people are going to get this just for, you know, the few games that they know about. Now, one thing Kat Bailey writes in her report is that she says, where is it? So I guess this is where I admit to being kind of in love with the Turbografx 16 Mini. It's such a specific console with a specific point of view, where the SNES Classic was a pure nostalgia magnet, a little bit of kitsch filled with games you already knew well. The Turbografx 16 Mini feels more educational. So even for somebody like Kat Bailey, well versed in retro games, a lot of these games she probably hasn't played before. I'm speculating. So unless you want to take a chance, go right ahead. But I think you know, if you want the nostalgia fix, an NES Classic or an NES Classic would probably be the better way to go. And she gives it a 4.5 out of 5, which is a very strong recommendation on this. So yeah, that's the Turbografx 16 Mini console. Get it if you're interested in it. Okay, now to some hardware news. So Nvidia Geforce, this is from videocards.com. Nvidia Geforce GTX 1650 has received a new variant with GDDR6 memory due to shortages of GDDR5 modules. Board partners are progressively releasing their refreshed designs of the Turing TU117 models. So in this news show, we will be covering a lot of hardware news, because I'm predominantly a PC gamer at this stage, especially with the consoles becoming very similar and having the same number of games. I just find it easier to just game on the one system, which is the PC for me. So there will be some PC hardware news that we're going to cover. But anyway, back to GTX 1650. This is basically a reminder that this is not such a great card. So if you see this and you see that people are selling this as a new card, just a reminder that Hardware Unboxed, they reviewed the GTX 1650 about a year ago, and here are the specs. It's $150. I don't think the price has changed. 896 cores versus the 1660, which is 1408, which is 50% faster, and more or less the same clocks. The 1660 has 6 gigs of RAM. But the good news is that because it's 75 watts, you can just run this off the PCI slot. So if you didn't have an extra power cable in your PC, you could just run this and it will take power from your motherboard. But clearly, if for most people, GTX 1660 is probably the way to go, or the TI version. But honestly, like, the TI version is not that much better. So it's like 10% better than the regular 1660. So if you're on a budget, the 1660 would be better. But yeah, Hardware Unboxed, they say it's a horrible value, $150 graphics card, and simply because you can get the AMD Radeon RX 570, more or less the same card for about the same price. The MSRP for that is $179, and you're getting how much? Well, my mouse is dead. In World War Z, it's getting 76 frames a second, and the 1650 is getting 60 frames a second, so 15 frames better for more or less the same price, especially if you look around for deals. Let me get my calculator out. So 60 and so it's 20% slower than the RX 570 for about the same price. So basically, yeah, Hardware Unboxed says the 1650 isn't compelling at that price, and that it should be about $100, not $150. If you see it for $100, yeah, that would be a good deal. And yeah, with GDDR6 and GDDR5, I did see some videos where they tested the difference between the two, and it was barely marginal. It was about 5% difference between the two cards, the old card and the new card. And if you're playing at 60 frames a second, that would be about 2 frames a second, 2 or 3 frames. So it wouldn't be worth the money. Just turn down a setting or something like that. Our next article is about AMD Zen 3 for desktop, which is expected in September. So Tom's Hardware is reporting after DigiTimes that AMD is planning to launch Ryzen 4000 series for desktop around September. This rumored launch collides with a new date for Computex Expo, which has now shifted to September 28. Thus, AMD could be showing new processor series at the event, a report from Computer Base indicates. So again, because of the coronavirus, looks like there's a bit of a delay in when they're releasing that. So they're trying to time it with like the trade shows, and also the manufacturing probably wasn't on for about a month in China. So we're looking at Zen 3 in September. So the interesting thing is that the GPUs from Nvidia, the next set of RTX cards, RTX 3000 series cards, looks like they're also going to be coming out in August, September. So both the CPUs and the GPUs coming out at the same time. That seems to me it's a good time to upgrade your computer or get a new one. So if you were thinking about upgrading, consider whether you could hold off for 6 months or more, so you can coincide with this. And they say launch or release in September, but you're looking more like October, November, unless you're willing to sit at your desk and F5 refresh constantly to get one of the first cards. They always have launch shortages. So yeah, just give it about a month or 2 months, especially with the prices as well, because even Amazon or Newegg, they all increase their prices if there's launch shortages. So you can always just wait for it to come down a little bit until it hits the MSRP, and then do your upgrade. But yeah, not often the CPUs and GPUs come out at the same time, and it looks to me like, from my perspective, that at least it'll give you the greatest choice, at the time, if you wait another 6 months till October. And you could also be on the lookout for deals on all of the old products as well. So, this generation stuff will probably get discounted to clear inventory space for all of the new products. So if you see some good deals, and it's all about performance. So like if they discount something by like 25%, then you are getting 25% performance free, basically. Okay. And yeah, just to go with that, we're seeing things like AMD Ryzen 5 1600 for $100 from Amazon. This was yesterday that I looked at it. $130 for a 1600. I'm also seeing about $130 for a 2600 on Amazon, and that's a 6-core 12-thread CPU. That's no slouch. Although I would say if you wanted to match the new consoles, the new consoles are 8-core, so maybe you want to get an 8-core, but the 8-core I saw it was about like $300, so it's a much bigger jump just to get that 2 extra cores. But if you're happy with the 6-core 12-thread, $120 is extremely cheap. Good value. Okay, this came out a while ago, but because it's our first show, I guess I wanted to talk about the console hardware, the next generation consoles that looks like it's probably going to be coming out at the end of the year. Sony PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So Video Cards writes that Sony PlayStation 5 equals AMD Zen 2 and RDNA 2 and hardware ray tracing and more. So the most interesting part of this article is the specs, and actually I've got a better version of the specs right here. So if we go through them line by line, just to do a bit of a comparison between the two, and then we can note the differences between the two consoles, and we can also speculate what their strategy and what their pricing strategy is going to be for their consoles, and what they're really thinking about doing, and what their audience might be like for their consoles, because it's quite clear from the specs once you go through them what they're trying to achieve. Okay, so with the PS5, they're looking at a CPU of 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz, and the Xbox Series X is 8 Zen 2 cores, so basically the same, at 3.8 gigahertz, 3.6 gigs with SMT. It doesn't say SMT with PS5, but you can probably assume it's probably about the same. I can't see that one will have SMT and one wouldn't, though I'd have to fact check that. But yeah, it looks like they're going parity on the CPU, which kind of makes sense, because if you're going to be writing games for one system and it's looking like it's going to be the same as the previous generations where you get games on both the PS5 and Xbox Series X. There are just certain there are certain lines of programming that you have to feed to the CPU, and you just want parity on both systems, otherwise you're going to cause a lot of problems. So they probably knew that they were going to go with a Zen 2 core, and they're going to be dealing with AMD, and they probably worked out, they wanted to go parity. The PS5 GPU is 10.28 teraflops at 36 CUs at 2.23 gigahertz, which is variable frequency, and the Xbox Series X GPU is 12 teraflops at 52 CUs at 1.825 gigahertz. Custom RDNA 2 GPU. So this is the one that's the most interesting to me, because the PS5 is using a variable frequency at 2.23 gigahertz, which is very high compared to the 1.8 Xbox Series X. Now think about it, like if Xbox Series X would go higher, if they thought about, like, if they wanted to, they would be doing it, but they're keeping it at a 1.825 level, and surely the PS5 is not operating at 20% higher clock frequency anyway than the Xbox Series X. So this is the most interesting part to me, is that the Xbox Series X has 52 CUs. So this is the actual processing or the amount of silicon power that for use for processing, like for textures and shaders, whereas PS5 has 36 CUs, and it compensates by increasing the frequency at certain times at 2.23 gigahertz. So it's almost like when people read the specs, they see, 2.23 gigahertz, so it's much faster, but how often are they going to be operating at this frequency, when we probably know that the Series X will operate at 1.8 most of the time? The PS5 will probably operate most of the time at 1.8, and then in certain situations it will boost itself, but how long it can boost, that depends on, like, if it overheats or the power limit of the GPU. So the real amount of processing power is this 36 CUs versus the 52, and it's probably going to look like the Series X going to have a lot more GPU processing power just by looking at this, and the PS5 will catch up in some instances when they boost to 2.23. So I mean, even if you look at it like 36, you're looking at about 30% difference just on the CUs alone, which is probably more than what this says is 10 teraflop figure and this 12 teraflops. So basically maximum teraflops is 10 for PS5, and the Xbox Series X will be 12. But generally speaking, when you're playing the game, over the entire course of like 10-20 hours, it may not be 10 teraflops consistently. So I think, that being said, the GPU is I guess, well, for PS5, the GPU doesn't look as powerful as the Series X. It looks like they're cost cutting here, and so it looks like the PS5 will be cheaper than the Xbox Series X. So this is like your premium machine, and with 12 teraflops, we're talking like RTX 2080 performance here, whereas your PS5, we're looking at I guess RTX 2070, around that. But you know, the price difference between an RTX 2070 and RTX 2080 is like about $200. So they've gone to cut some costs here in the PS5. At least that's my take on it. The memory, 16 gigs, GDDR6 at 256-bit, PS5. Xbox Series X memory is 16 gigabytes, GDDR6, so basically the same. Memory bandwidth is 448 gigabytes a second. Xbox Series X, they've gone with 10 gigabytes at 560, so some that is faster, and 6 gigabytes at 336 gigabytes per second, and some that are slower. So here they're trying to do a bit of a compromise. They weren't going to just provide it all 448. They want to squeak out more performance in their system and make or force developers to program some of it for this 10 gig and some of it for this 6 gigabytes. Now here's the crazy one, which if is incredible how tight you want to be, and just goes to show how cost cutting the PS5 or Sony want to be. The internal storage is a custom 825 gigabyte SSD, and the Xbox Series X is a 1 terabyte. Now we know a lot of casual buyers are going to look at this and go, hey, if these two are the same price, they won't be the same price, but like let's say they were, hey, I'm getting a 1 terabyte system, and on the PS5 I'd be getting an 825 gigabyte system. I'm going to go and get the 1 terabyte because that's better value. So I'm not really sure why they wanted to cut 175 gigabytes out of their SSD, especially when it's such an easy thing for them to put on the box as 1 terabyte. So at least people can just compare apples with apples and go, hey, I got a 1 terabyte PS5 and a 1 terabyte Xbox Series X, and okay, people can talk about other things, say like the price, rather than the SSD. Like how much would it really cost for them to put in a 1 terabyte SSD? So it's kind of crazy that they wanted to cost cut that much. And so that's another clue to me that they're trying to cut costs on this thing, on the PS5. The input-output throughput for PS5 is 5.5 gigabytes per second raw, and typically it's 8 to 9 gigabytes per second compressed, and the Xbox Series X is about half of this, so it's 2.4 gigabytes per second raw and 4.8 gigabytes per second compressed. So basically this is like how much bandwidth that gets processed at a single point in time. So this is the compromise for PS5. So they spent less on the GPU and spent a little bit more in the input-output throughput here to double Xbox Series X. So when this was explained to me, I was told that, I read that this is kind of things like they can draw a lot more stuff on the screen and better quality textures on the screen at any one time. So it looks like they can do that twice as well as the Xbox. And this is so where they compensate, so they can draw bigger vistas. And you know, when sites like Digital Foundry do their reviews, it's not going to be a one-sided show for the Xbox Series X. It looks like the Xbox will probably win overall, but there will be arguments to be made where the PS5, it's possible that it could look better in some instances based on this input throughput, 5.5 gigabytes and 8 to 9 gigabytes compressed. So yeah, they thought they would spend a little bit more here to compensate for the GPU. Now the other things, expandable storage, NVMe slots. Xbox is more or less the same. Expandable storage, 1TB expansion card, matches internal storage exactly. Not sure what that means. But external storage, USB hard disk support, which is good. Xbox Series X has hard disk support as well. So that's another thing. You've got your internal storage as an SSD. I don't think people will be connecting this hard disk storage unless they are just backing up their games, so they don't have to re-download them from the internet again. Because I'm thinking that most developers will try to make use of this SSD for their game development, and if they run it on this hard drive, it might be slower, and then the performance won't be as good. Especially like if they go back to 30 frames per second games again. If they do that, then and they run it off the USB, then you're looking at a lot lower frames per second performance. So I think mostly this will be used for backup, but again, like there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to hook up a expandable SSD later on. At this stage though, the SSDs are quite expensive, but I'm sure they'll come down in cost. And okay, PS5 and Xbox Series X both come with a 4K UHD Blu-ray drive, which is great news because and hopefully you'll be able to watch hard physical copies of Blu-rays, because that was one of the things that was missing in the PS4. I don't know if they've still got it now, but I don't know if they I think Xbox One X has 4K UHD Blu-ray movies playback, but I think PS4 does not. But correct me if I'm wrong. So overall, I think the PS5 is a less powerful, but not by too much, just between the 10 and 12 teraflops maybe. This is a less powerful piece of hardware than the Xbox Series X, and they're looking again to once again continue the strategy that it's set with the PS4. When they decided to lower the PS4 launch price to $399 and undercut the Xbox launch price, the Xbox One launch price, which was $499, because at that time it came with the Kinect, so they were putting in the Kinect inside and charging $100 for it. They won the generation with their $100 price difference, and PS5 is looking to do the same strategy again. There's no Kinect this time, so maybe the price will be a little bit closer, but again, Sony know that there's no Kinect, so they had to make a lower piece of lower performance piece of hardware, and that's what it looks like they've done. They're trying to make it $50 or $100 less than the Xbox Series X, and if they're going to do that, Xbox Series X has its work cut out for them, because a lot of people are probably going to look and think, well, these two systems are close enough that I won't be able to tell the performance difference. I'm just going to get a PS5. And it's the same strategy that happened with the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, the original Xbox at the time. The PlayStation 2, in fact, that was way worse than the Xbox. And if you put them side by side, you immediately tell the difference between the two systems. And this will be a lot closer than the PS2 and the Xbox difference. So they're doing the same thing again. I feel like Xbox, if they're not going to lower the price, they have to bundle something in with it, like a couple of games, Game Pass for a year. I don't think they should bundle stuff, because people are going to pick the cheaper system. I think Xbox should get as close to the PS5 as possible, PS5 price as possible. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see what happens. So if the PS5, I believe they're going to go with a $399 price point. Xbox Series X at $499, well, PS5 I think will win. That's my prediction at this point in time. If PS5 is $399, they're going to win. Just to keep going with the PlayStation 5 news, next generation console news, there's a report in Polygon. They say that Sony is making fewer PS5s and struggling with price. And they're struggling with price, I believe, because the prices of their components have increased because of the COVID-19 global pandemic. Well, actually, no. It says the company's manufacturing partners were recently informed by Sony of the 5 to 6 million figure, which isn't influenced by the COVID-19 global pandemic, Bloomberg said. So the original report came from Bloomberg. But yeah, it does say that the company is grappling with the price and availability of the PS5's components. So it's more that the guts of the machine are so expensive and rare that Sony has been looking at a price tag in the neighborhood of $499 to $549. Bloomberg has characterized Sony as struggling with the price announcement. The PlayStation 4 launched at $399, the base model is now $299, and the PS4 Pro, which launched in 2016, is $399. Well, this is interesting because I assume that the PS5 would be $399, but it looks like they want to continue selling the PS4 at $299 and PS4 Pro at $399. And I think, you know, in the past, they designed the consoles so as they increased in the amount of consoles sold, they could make them cheaper, and in turn the price of the console would be much cheaper to consumers at the later stage of the product, because it just continued to sell. It continued to sell huge. This was PS2 and to some extent PS3 when it eventually got cheaper. But now with PS4, they're also competing with similar parts of the PC industry. So the pricing is a lot more fixed, and that's why I think the prices are not coming down as much. I mean, at the end of the generation, you'd normally see that the console would be at least $199, if not $149. And there was a time when they'd just get rid of the consoles, the PS1, for like $99. And it's not really happening anymore because, for one, the consoles are a lot more advanced now to begin with. So like even the base PS4 model is still a decent machine. I don't know about $299 though, but for $199, yeah, I think the PS4 should be $199. The PS4 Pro should be $299. Which would give room for the PlayStation 5 to be launched at $399. But yeah, you know, who is going to buy the PS4 Pro at $299 when you can just buy the PS5 at $399 and it plays most of the PlayStation 4 games? But I think Sony have a problem if they charge $499 to $549, as they say in this article, for the PlayStation 5, because I think that would be too expensive, and Xbox would just go for the jugular at that point. They would make theirs $499, $549. And yeah, it's going to be very tight if they do. And honestly, the way Xbox have set up, or Microsoft have set up their infrastructure in the Xbox One era has been great going forward. So with the things that they've done, like Xbox Games with Gold and Xbox Game Pass, where it's almost like the Netflix of gaming, and I think that's only about $10 to $15 per month, which is very reasonable considering you get a huge catalog of games that you can play anytime. That was certainly better than what Sony had provided with their version of Game Pass. I forgot what it was called, but like a PlayStation Now, I think it was called. But with that was more a streaming solution, and a lot of people said that it worked well, but it just didn't do well enough because people were still uncertain of actually playing games that were streamed. So I guess you could say that was kind of ahead of its time, because we've got Google, and Google's coming out with their own streaming games platform. But at the moment, it seems like the way to go still is the way that Microsoft is doing it, where you can download the actual game and do more like a Netflix sort of pass with their Game Pass system. And then obviously the other part of this news was that company plans 5 to 6 million units in the new console's first 2 quarters on sale, which actually, when I read this in Bloomberg News, they said it for launch period. Sony Corp plans to produce far fewer units of its upcoming PlayStation 5 in its first year than it had for the previous generation console's launch. But it does say 5 to 6 million units of the PS5 in the fiscal year ending March 2021, which is a lot less than previous generations. So as you can see here, the number is short of the 7.5 million PlayStation 4 systems that Sony sold from November 2013 to March 2014. If this is true, then the scalpers are going to win. And that's not good either. So there's another reason why Sony is increasing the price of this system to combat the amount of systems that the scalpers can buy. So there'll be a smaller market because the price is higher. So there'll be less buyers anyway. If the scalpers, charge $1,000 for this, then they're going to get a lot less people than if they charge, say, like $700 for this system. But overall, yeah, this is not good for people who want the new PlayStation 5. 5 to 6 million is definitely not enough for 2 quarters, because normally I think you'd be looking at around 15 to 20 million per year sales. What are the PlayStation 5 sales? PlayStation 4 sales? I think they're probably hitting about 100 million. They got 100 million, and how many? 5 years. So they sell about 20 million a year. Where am I? And 5 to 6 million. Average that out. Extrapolate that out to a full year would be 12 million for the first year, and that's only 50% of what they should be selling. That's a bit of a problem. And another thing that they could do would be just to delay the console until they have enough systems, which actually, when you think about it, is probably a good idea. Not a bad idea. Not because again, it depends on what Xbox also does. You don't want them to get like a 6-month head start on the competition. especially when people are embedded in that system. They've already bought games for the Xbox. They may just continue to buy games for the Xbox. So Sony want to be coming out at the same time as Microsoft. But yeah, 5 to 6 million is really only half the number. So if you want a PS5, you should pre-order one. Let's have a look at the release date calendar for April, the rest of the month. So we'll just go through the whole month because it's the first time we've done it. April 2nd, My Friend Pedro on PS4. April 3rd is Resident Evil 3. I'm playing Resident Evil 2 at the moment, and it's awesome. So I'll most likely get 3. But I heard that it was a little bit shorter, so I might just wait for a sale for that one. April 7th is Below and Disaster Report 4, Summer Memories. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the first time Disaster Reports come out in the West. And it's on Steam as well, so if you're interested, check that out. April 10th is the big one, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Personally, I probably won't be playing it. I did buy Final Fantasy VII, I think on the PlayStation 3 as a PS1 game, and I also have the physical copy, the PS1 physical copy sealed that I never touched, the platinum version, not the original version. But yeah, it's probably past its time for me. Like I'm not sure I'm that interested to play it. April 14th, Space Engineers on the Xbox One. April 15th, Phantasy Star Online 2 on Xbox One. Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York. Guess that's probably like some sort of DLC side mission. April 23, Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack. April 23, Bokuhimi Project, Nintendo Switch and PS4. April 23, Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack, Bokuhimi Project, MotoGP 20, Picross S4 as we've already discussed. April 24, Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 Road to Boruto. Wow, that's one long title. Predator Hunting Grounds. That, I've never heard of that. What's that? Oh, okay. I think I saw that on Steam. Trials of Mana, XCOM Chimera Squad. Let's have a look and see what that is. It is set as a sequel to XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. After a tenacious peace accord between warring human and alien forces have been achieved, the player controls a mixed squad of human. Okay, so it's a full game then. So that'll be interesting for our XCOM fans. April 28th is Gears Tactics, Sakura Wars, and SnowRunner, which is a Spin Tires game. And April 30 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered. So overall, not so much coming out at the end of this month. The big ones were obviously Resident Evil 3 and Final Fantasy VII Remake. I guess, you know, this was supposed to be the month that Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to be released. And so I'm guessing that a lot of other publishers decided to kind of get out of the way. And now there's a bit of an empty hole in the release schedule. And as well, like, you know, in May it was supposed to be The Last of Us Part 2 was supposed to be released. And that's not happening. Yeah, not so much being released in the next couple of months. But you know, Resident Evil 3 and Final Fantasy 7, that's a pretty good month, I think, in general. Okay, that's probably going to do it for the show. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to click like and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Yeah, leave your comments in below what you thought of the show. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.